Hello. Something a bit different for you guys. I'm going to be trying to release these weekly. It's a podcast that I've been wanting to start for a while surrounding mental health matters and stories that people have and how we learn to cope with what we feel is our inhibitions or our demons or whichever way you want to portray how mental health affects your life. And the reason I want to do this and the reason I'm doing it on this channel rather than on a separate one is my channel has always been one that I've wanted to provide a space for people to express themselves or join a community of people where everyone matters and everyone has their say and everyone gets a chance to tell their side of a story. And the reason I want to do this is because there is a gap where obviously with this at the moment, it's mainly a gaming channel. I mainly post gaming videos and gaming TikToks or gaming shorts or anything that can, provide some laughs or, trigger certain conversations to be had, which is why I play a lot of the classic games, a lot of, bringing up that nostalgia, that real nostalgia feel, especially when I've been doing, the old Call of Duties or things like that. It's to invite and spark conversation, is to bring people in to this community that I want to make. And the other purpose of the channel was to provide another voice in the room. Now, without going into too much detail, I know how it feels to stick on a video and have someone else's voice in the room on those days where you feel alone and you need something, you need some sort of interaction. So for example, when people stream, say, like Mini Mentor or Alia A, the chat engages with the streamer, you know, and that helps a lot of people in a lot of ways because especially if they get responded to. And I think it's especially important that smaller streamers get supported for that very thing of, you may not know these people and you don't know these people inside and out, but just having another voice, another person to connect with when you're especially alone, like, it's something that I always want and I've always wanted to do, is to invite people to, join me and play games and things like that. I'm still very new into this journey. But the podcast in particular, is to allow people to help others as well as potentially helping themselves by not necessarily looking for guidance, not necessarily looking for, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, but sometimes all we need is for someone to listen to our story, comprehend it or empathize with it, and just help others feel it. Some people aren't looking for advice or looking for some sort of resolution to their inhibitions. It's looking for something to help in that moment. Whether that would be a short-term release or whether that would, you know, affirm for yourself that other people understand and other people are there, and the resources that I want to provide for you guys do help in some small way. Or even for the moment, I will be doing podcasts by myself until, I've left my email there for anyone that wants to do exactly that, and try and get something going. I'm not looking for this to be a place where this instantly becomes successful. It's not. It was never about success. And ironically, I'm calling this time because as you can see on the screen, I've made an acronym for it. Towards improving mentally every day takes time. It doesn't take minutes, doesn't take years, doesn't take days. It takes time. In this sense, it is not linear. It's not factual when it comes down to it. It's an illness, it's a disease, just like everything else when it comes down to mental health and mental illness. Now, I'm only versed in mental health, in depression and anxiety, in PTSD and things like that. I'm not, I know how they can affect me or affect the people around me, not, you know, things that really inhibit your ways of life, like OCD, like severe forms of PTSD, like borderline personality disorder, like bipolar disorder. I'm, I want to learn more. I want to learn more about that. And obviously, yes, you know, you can go to university, which I am currently doing. I am currently going to university and studying psychology with counselling because, on top of me building this channel, I'm training to become a counsellor at the same time. And there are obviously limits and risks, and I'm fully aware of that. It's more of a case of it will be one or the other, using everything I've learned in the course to help, especially with the podcast, or be able to conduct my channel in such a way that it provides exactly what I want it to provide as almost a product, almost a business. When you go into the YouTube scene, it's a business. You have to treat it like a business. And with this in particular, it's something that I, want to advocate, want to talk about during the times where you may not necessarily be heard, you may not necessarily have been seen. The waiting lists are far too long, and sometimes all it takes is a conversation and a change in how you approach things. And to go back on what I was saying about the fact that I'm studying this at uni, when it comes down to actually the experience of mental health and mental illness, it's only something you can educate people on. It's not something you can teach. Teaching applies a more practical element. You can't teach someone how to deal with any form of as I say, OCD or PTSD on a personal level, on an emotional level. You can learn how to empathize with it, you can learn about it, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at is I want to learn more about how it affects people and how people, try to cope with it, try to heal from it, try to whatever word that people use. I don't want to talk too brashly about, certain terminologies that are used all the time, But, and this isn't even me handing in my resume of, here you are. As I say, I'm not wanting to, not wanting to use this as sort of therapy. I mean, if people use this as a form of therapy of where people listen in each week or every other week, depending on when I do them, it's more, that's fine, but it's more the case of I know there are a lot of people out there that don't have the ability to speak on how they're actually feeling without judgment, without comprehension, with people saying, oh, that's just life, or, that's just part of growing up. It's learning to really validate other people's emotions and how, those emotions affect us in our day to day. You know, how a simple thing for someone can be really difficult for someone else. And how you eventually get to a stage where you can either you move past that, or how it still inhibits you in your day to day. And with doing this podcast and with wanting to do that, it generates more of a insight into other people, and it's not necessarily of going into everyone's life stories. I mean, people are more than welcome to do that on this podcast. I personally won't be, for obvious reasons, but I want to give people an opportunity to speak up and speak to me, or almost have a conversation with me that kind of signposts the rest of the world of what's actually going on, because people don't have that platform to talk without someone rejecting it. And for any negative comment, I find, if I do a podcast like this, or if I do an episode, any negative comment I find, I will just I'll delete them. Simple as that. I don't want any negativity. This isn't to spark debate. This is to be honest and truthful. And people find that difficult. People find that really difficult to do, and I've seen it plenty of times before, with people in all different walks of life, where even now mental health is still challenged in its validity by everyone. I'm not going to label it down to specific generations. I'm not going to generalize that, but the idea of things being so loud in your head that you need to switch yourself off by consuming a piece of media, or in the worst cases, people using vices like alcohol and drugs or eating as a way to bring them a form of dopamine or serotonin in that moment. It's hard. It's hard to it can be hard to comprehend that it even exists. I can understand that to a degree, that whole thing, especially because I've seen how people have walked through life not understanding it. And to explain something like that to them is surreal, but it's challenging the unknown and making it known, is what I'm trying to get at. It's making it known, making it apparent, making it heard, making it be seen. We've just got to a point economically where hidden disabilities are starting to be recognised. And I'm not going to say mental health is on that list in terms of a disability, but mental health is awfully hidden. As in, it's, hidden, not it's badly hidden. It's, yeah, you know what I mean. How, and if I say anything that, quote unquote, upsets anyone or offends anyone, then obviously within reason, like me saying a word of such as to or from, let's say, and someone gets offended by that, then it's just, it's trolling at the end of the day. Whereas if someone genuinely gets offended by what it is I'm saying, tell me. Tell me, signpost me, guide me in a direction that you would want people to go down. At the end of the day, I am opening myself up to any guidance myself where I'm still in the unknown about certain things, and that's why I want to make it known so other people know about it, and we just create a genuinely pleasant society, whether it's a niche group of us that work on this work on this podcast together. At the end of the day, this is something that I want to do, but I can give the foundations, but people can build on it. And that is what I'm offering, is for people to build on it and for people to say what it, guide it in a direction for certain things that they would want to guide it in. I would have done this in a face cam, but if you're a regular viewer of this channel, I don't tend to show my face all that much because me personally, I struggle to emote. And that is something I will be open about, is the fact that I struggle to emote in terms of how I visually look, in terms of how I express my voice. I am starting to get better at that because I never used to be able to express myself either. I mean, this will probably come back in the recording as monotonous as anything, but it isn't intended to be monotonous. I don't mean to sound monotonous. I just struggle to emote outwardly. I can really only emote inwardly. So, otherwise, I would have, posted this with a, face cam and all the works. But eventually, I want to get to a stage where, it is like a generic podcast where you have a set, you have cameras, you have everything, then you just, sit there and have a conversation. And I'm not limiting this to anyone. If I can find a way to converse with someone surrounding certain topics, then I will. Whether that be professionals, whether that be people actually suffering with it, anyone. No, I'm not, this is without sounding too cheesy, this is a safe space for conversations to be had. Allowing people to speak their opinion, even if it goes against the common narrative. At the end of the day, we all have an opinion. Your opinion might be challenged, and put it this way, if I record an episode where, say for example, we're talking about the trans community and the LGBT community, and you say something derogatory about that community, I won't post it. It won't get posted. I'll stop it. I'll end it there and then. I don't want, people are entitled to their opinions, but do not make it derogatory towards others. If you don't understand something, if you don't understand a mentality that, or, understand something that people have or don't have, or feel or don't feel, simply say, I don't understand it. That's fine. But don't become derogatory towards it because that is your only way of expressing that confusion. Because that's all it falls down to at the end of the day, is confusion of why people are the way they are, why people can be the way they can be. And I guess that in that sense, I can understand it, but to be derogatory towards people on that scale, or anyone, is wrong. It's just simply wrong. And as I say, I have a nasty habit of not being able to. I don't mince my words all that well, or is that the wrong way of saying it? Mince my words. Blunt. I'm a bit too blunt at times, so I oversimplify things quite a bit. And this is the thing, and this is what I want to learn about with any form of community that feels that they have been what's the word? Discriminated against. Obviously, when it comes down to it, any guests that I will have will be pseudonymed, and any names that they say will also be pseudonymed. Because as much as, and even if you want me to do a voiceover for you, if you want me to disguise your voice, I'll learn how to do that. At the end of the day, I want to make this as safe and as confidential as possible, because the types of stories that we could hear, especially ones of this extreme circumstances, and I won't even say it right now. I know that if they have a place to be able to protect themselves, to be able to speak about it without any form of judgment or disagreement or discriminating, comment, then I would rather you be safe in that environment to do so, only as you wish. Obviously, when it comes down to it's a bit of an ask, putting yourself out on the internet like this to this capacity. I get that. It's a bit of an ask. If I can make this work, then great. If I think this is too damaging to anyone in particular or even myself, then I will pull the plug. This is a bit of a gamble, but at the same time, I want to help in some way. I want to help, I want to learn, I want people to be able to express themselves. And I know I've probably repeated myself a few times, and I've probably lost a fair few of you within the first sort of 10 minutes of me droning on like this. But if anyone has sat here and listened to this whole thing, thank you. Spread the word, share it, link it, tweet it, comment it, do whatever you want to do with this. Even if you use this podcast to help you fall asleep, at least you've fallen asleep. At least it's brought you, some form of guarantee is not really the right word. It's more, if this has helped you in any way, even if it's not non-conventional. Same thing with my videos. If my videos help you either to sleep or pass time, or that's the whole point. I'm not grounding so much into them because the whole idea is to just be another voice in the room for the loneliest of souls. And I am inviting the loneliest of souls to have a conversation and to get their feelings and emotions heard. And try and create an equal opportunistic, place. Opportunistic? I don't know. Space for people to do exactly that. I'm gonna do, if I'm doing these episodes on my own for the time being, then I am gonna have to do some research into certain topics for the time being. No pun intended. But yeah, if you've listened to me dribble on for the last 25 minutes, thank you very much. Honestly, as I say, this is a gamble in itself. This is something that I want to do. And everything will be raw cut. All the footage or audio will just be raw. It won't be edited. And maybe add a, intro or whatever, quote unquote. But yeah, I'm not going to do my usual outros. But what I will say is, to was improving mentally every day, it takes time. And with that being said, I'll see you next week.